It's great to see you back at the lunation situation. There's so much geometry in this chart. There's a grand air trine promising a lot of ease and a breath of fresh air and easy movement and changes, fastness. There are two yods, two fingers of God pointing to divine destiny. And so much more. Important to note that we are in eclipse energies because eclipses bring the windfall earlier. And so from now on, we are heavily under eclipse vibes, which both will take place in September. We can feel the intensity. And of course, during a full moon, same. A full moon means we are enlightened, we are revealed to information that we didn't know before. Things were suppressed. There's a lot of emotional intensity, potential for moodiness, but it's the end of a lunar cycle. So things are being completed. Things are coming to an end. As sad as that can be, as emotional as that can be, it can also be a celebration of some kind or harvest, especially at that 17 degrees of Aquarius. If you worked in the Aquarius field, if you have planets in Aquarius, especially around 17 degrees, this is a personal one for you. But of course, also where the sun is at 17 degrees of Leo is significant. And also 17 degrees of Taurus and 17 degrees of Scorpio, and give or take 3 degrees on each side. So meaning 20 degrees to 14 degrees of the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, are affected. Aquarius is the inventive, the futuristic, the innovative, the trailblazer, because it doesn't care about what other people think. It is about their own unique expression, the essence of who they are. Authentic power is what an Aquarian is looking for. It's the defiant. You have to go against things to find your own way, to find your own vision, to find your own expression. And so defiant means it can have really different views, different opinions, different ideas, out of the box, new, ahead of its time. And therefore it can be a little bit misunderstood. But it's a very big trendsetter, and it is about that unique way, which could be also for some weird, strange, maybe too far, maybe too liberated. It is about freedom because it's about individuation. Your essential self comes through enlightenment, awakening to your own truth, which is, going against society, going against your culture, you have to go against a few things to find out what is your truth. Pretty advanced, and it's a lot about intelligence. It's the genius sign. It's about knowledge. It's about really big ideas and visions that weren't here yet before. And that can make them be seen as a rebel because it's very, very new. It's from the higher perspective, definitely about quantum science, technology, vibrations, frequency. It's the supernatural, the higher mind, higher consciousness that's awakened to the higher perspective. So not just yourself, but also how systems are at play, how there are connections between yourself and what's going on in the world. What's going on in the world has an effect on you. It's that quantum core that we're all energy, we're all interrelated, and energy is everything, so it affects everyone. The supernaturalness is also a hint to the cosmic connection that comes in with Aquarius because it's out of this world. So have we encountered, or are we encountering, issues with liberation, with freedom, with our authenticity, with our free spirit? Is there something going on of being afraid, of being the weirdo? Because it's ruled by Uranus, it's always about change. It's always about chaos, disruption, emancipation, about the collective, about humanity. And Uranus is here to show us a complete new world that's based on your authentic self, your individualness. That what makes you special and different, unique. The frequency of who you really are. That's a very strong vibration, and that's the Uranian Aquarius energy. It's of course also the 11th house in astrology, which means that it's connected to networking, friendships, acquaintances. It's about the internet. It's about social media. It's about humanity and cooperation, but it's also about wishes and hope. So, what hopes and wishes are we completing, or are we ready to rebel for? Where haven't we been wild, or where will we feel wild? 17 degrees of Aquarius, that's where you look at for this information. Which house is that for you? That's where the wildness is at. That's where the stagnation, the combustion, the constipation, if you will, of energy was occurring. And this full moon is bringing that to light. And it can be uncomfortable. But interestingly, this full moon is kind of technically, in astrology terms, unaspected. Even though I see a yod, in technical terms, it is unaspected. And that means it has no relation technically to other planets, okay? This means that this full moon, just like Aquarius and Uranus, is very unique, can be very exaggerated and kind of weird, out of this box, chaotic. Interestingly, where Pluto is at in Aquarius is where Uranus rules, and basically, it's interlinked to this lunation. Pluto is out of bounds. And that's kind of just like an unaspected planet. So this is technical astrology. And that means that if Pluto is out of bounds and this full moon is unaspected, we have a double exaggeration and uniqueness and potential disruption and chaos and wildness to it. Add in that this is a pre-eclipse energy, wildness is at play. So we don't know the outcome. It can be strange. It can be really like coming from left field. It is very, you're unable to predict this one, except for yourself personally, because you know where 17 degrees is in your chart. That same unexpectedness, that same exaggeration of energy, meaning electric and, nervous and just over the top on any topic, on emotions, because it's full moon, on discomfort potentially. And also that dire pressure for uniqueness, to find your inner power, is again high. Other than the moon, we do have a lot of geometry going on. So there are two kites, there's a mystical rectangle, there's a grand air trine. So let's unpack that. First of all, a grand air trine, because Mars has just entered the sign of Libra at 1 degrees, and it's grand trining Uranus and Pluto. So all the air signs are involved. This means there's a lot of, potential for movement, for fastness, for communication, for a lot of ideas. Our mind is on fire, and we're really feeling a desire to get moving, and it's all in the mind, because the action will come a little bit later, because Mercury is still retrograde in this lunation and will go direct August 11th, okay? So hold your horse, and it's also a full moon, so it's not a time to initiate on really new things, but there's a lot going on in our mind, and there's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of kind of excitement, okay? Um, about breaking through and breaking out and moving in a direction that is really speaking to you, that is your frequency, your vibration, your unique power, is something you're really, really thinking about. And maybe that comes in with ideas of what you want to do with that power, where you want to move with that. I would say, especially because Mercury is still retro, maybe not the greatest time to share with people what that is, but at least you have an idea. Write it down. Maybe some thoughts are so fast, so fleeting, that you really want to reassess the incoming information, because it's a grand air trine, so things could be really beneficial. This grand air trine is the base that creates two kites, and that means the energy is really taking off in those directions. One is Saturn and Neptune, who are both retrograde in Aries, and this is a kite formation that kind of has been going on for 2 years on really the Virgo and Pisces axis. And this is also where eclipses are going to occur in September. So, there's a lot of focus on new goals, new directions, new you, new personality, a lot more passion, a lot more fire, but also a lot more consideration of the greater good, being of service to many people, So, but there is like a little bit of long time of reassessing of what that is, because the real big actions will probably take place in the beginning of 2026, when, the green light goes on in the Aries direction, because it's still retrograde. But we're feeling the new ideas, we're feeling the new incoming nudges, and kind of the insights of the new karma, the new era of our life, which is based on that personal, individual, authentic power, okay? That's why I think this full moon, this out of boundness of Pluto, and the eclipses are remembering us how important it is to find your own frequency, to find your own voice, to find your uniqueness. And that means finding your own goals, right? And they most probably, just like in my case, have radically changed. And radical is an Aquarius word. So this could also be an assessment, because Mercury is still retro. What has changed for you? What was so radical, so completely different, that it has made you a different person? Recently, somebody asked me, because I've been going through a very long, deep process. Some people call it a burnout, or worse, depression. Well, I don't know what is worse, but and there was a real big turning point for me in 2018, 19, 20. Just like the world changed in those years as well, but individually I had been going through a lot, and it completely changed who I am. It's a complete 180. And she asked me, what would you like to retrieve that was sort of lost, that was changed permanently from that time on, right? And I was like, I don't want to retrieve anything. because I am completely different now. I worked really hard in the old system, you know, thought that working hard, doing a lot was equals success. But it didn't work for me. And life forced me to slow down. And so I did. I had to. And I would never want to be that same person I was before 5, 6 years ago, because that girl did so much effort, so much force, you know, working so hard to achieve things. I knew that that's not what I want anymore, and that's not what I'm going to do anymore. And so astrology came in those years, and I've been on a very intense healing journey. And there are some objections to the healing word, but to me, healing is what Aquarius stands for. And that is really to find your own unique way, which is unprogrammed. Because I had this idea that I had to work really hard to achieve things. And so I did, right? With a lot of stress and a lot of force to get things done and to achieve dreams. I really worked really hard for all of them. And because of the forced slowness, I realized I don't want to go and do fast things. I don't want to lose my energy to things I don't want to do, to people that I don't want to see. You know, I really got to know myself, which is that weird, unique, different frequency that Aquarius stands for. And if you tell your life story to some people in the Aquarius way, they will find it shocking. It's too different. It's too odd. It makes you weird, and it can make you unaccepted because of that. And you may feel like an outcast sometimes. But the good thing about Aquarius is that it doesn't care about that part, because the more you embrace who you really are and just stand for who you are, and guess what? Astrology is the biggest thing you can find to know who you really are. The energy of who you really are is encoded in your chart.
To know more about your chart, you can book a reading via my Instagram. Search for Aussie Astrology and you'll find me.
And I think this full moon and just the whole process of all these energetic changes of 2025 is that we are all kind of pushed in this direction of finding your own way of doing things. Maybe your way is fast, right? Maybe your way is like hot topics. Maybe you love making short videos and you're very efficient. You like to get things done and you have all this schedule. Maybe that's your way, right? You have those people that wake up at 5 a.m. and then do their whole routine. But I do feel, especially now, because the South Node is in Virgo, that is not the way. The way is more to surrender and to the flow, and the way is to heal, really deprogramming, and to heal emotions and to mature from that side. But this full moon shows that you need to find the weird side. You need to find the wild side. You need to find the way that makes you an oddball, and really sit with that and find the okayness with that. Because the sun is in Leo and the moon is in Aquarius, I always find that that's an axis of energy, right? They are similar but yet different. And it means that a lot of Aquarius has a Leo vibe. And what is Leo about? Childness, fun, inner child. If you don't know what you're here to do, well, look at the North Node. If you know astrology, that's what you're here to do. But if you want to approach it more from a psychological point, I would say look at what your passion was as a child. What was your dream? Because 11th house, Aquarius, hopes and wishes. What was your dream as a child? It can give away a lot of information of what you're here to do. You know, even if it's not being an astronaut, maybe it's becoming an astrologer to reach for the stars, right? Maybe it was singing when you were a child, but it's more about using your voice in a certain way or for a certain cause. That's the kind of idea, right? Maybe you wanted to be a firefighter, but what really is that you want to help people from extreme situations, maybe lower the heat and anger. So the goal is to find your unique vision. Now, the other kite points to the Mercury who's still retrograde. It's actually kind of standstill because it's going to go direct in 2 days after this lunation, which means that it's already at that degree. It's already at a standstill, what they say. So it's at a momentum point. We have been in a Mercury retrograde for the last 3 weeks in Leo, which is about that inner child, about the joy, the pleasure, the expression, the art of life. And so Mercury, our thoughts, our mind, our communication, has really been reflecting upon those topics. Maybe you miss how you were as a child. Maybe you thought about what I just said. What were you into when you were a child? What was your wish, your passion at that point? Or maybe you've thought about how you can be more happy, or how you weren't happy, or how you're, or more play and more passion. Most probably these have been topics on your mind. More how you can express yourself from the heart with more drama and oomph. And again, embracing who you are and being unafraid, being really brave in that energy, in that expressiveness, which can also be creation, creativity, anything with children, the arts, the dancing, anything active, sports as well, and leadership. All these topics you've been thinking about. And so there's also a takeoff at this Mercury Leo point. And notice how both these kites are pointing to early fire signs, right? So again, if you have anything in the fire signs, in the early fire signs, these kites are speaking to you personally. And there is some passion and play that is calling for us. It is saying this is the right path. This is where you're going to take off. And this is why I really, really think, really, really believe, really feel that it's about looking into who you were as a child, what drove you, what gave you pleasure, what was so fun when you were a child, and to kind of explore that in whatever way you can, to honor yourself, your inner child, to honor the importance of fun, of joy, and to really feel the passion again. That is the motor, the drive to a new path. Then there's a mystical rectangle, which is made up of two oppositions that are trining and sextiling together. So there is a lot of tension, two energies pulling in two different directions, but there is a lot of harmony and easy flow between the two oppositions. So, and this evolves the opposition between Mercury retrograde in Leo, and on the other side is Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, and this is intense. This is revealing information that can be really disturbing and dark and highly uncomfortable. It could be involving leaders that may rule over a lot of people, or technologies that have affected a lot of people. It's a very intense and, yeah, difficult one, because Pluto is pretty malefic. And the retrograde has also been digging up stuff, right? So unpleasant information could really come out. There's another opposition between Mars, who has entered Libra August 7th. And Mars is not very comfortable in Libra because it's at home on the opposite side in Aries. So it's a detriment, what they say. So Mars in Libra has to consider other people, has to make compromises, has to cooperate and use diplomacy and tact, and not just, going ahead in its own direction, not caring or thinking about other people. That's not the way. So Mars is like, has to weigh its options and has to like ask other people, and it just can't move on its own. And so that's not very nice for Mars already. But it's in opposition to the big hitters in Aries, its own home, but it's not there. And that's Saturn in Aries and Neptune in Aries, both retrograde, right? So this is that new era that's being ignited, but really ignited in 2026. But we're really thinking about a lot of new directions, right? And the new you that you are with that direction. And so Mars is kind of thinking, is there like a tactful way to do that? Can I incorporate in my strategy other people? Do I need to be considerate of someone? And it's kind of weighing the options. On the world scale, this is potential for diplomatic disturbances and like disturbing the peace, even though Mars oddly is inclined to have peace and diplomacy, but it's in an opposition to all that Aries energy. Because it's interacting with Mercury and Pluto, right? The other opposition, I feel that there could also come to light, part of that disturbing information is maybe like peace talks that aren't going the right way. There are unexpected players that are going against certain situations, going against peace. There is an odd clarity about what's going on in the diplomacy and in the peace area of the world. So there's a lot of things that are coming out which are true, but perhaps a little bit difficult to swallow. But under a Aquarius moon, full moon, we want the truth. We can handle the disturbance, because it has to come up. And it has to come up so we can move forward in new ways. So that's the mystical rectangle. And then there is a talent triangle. Then there's a talent triangle on top of the mystical rectangle. So it makes this geometry look like a house, which I find really interesting because a house is a solid thing. It's a foundation. It's where you can build and live, and it's the ultimate base. It's a cornerstone of everything for life. Shelter, right? Shelter equals often safety, or at least it starts there, right? So what is this house about? Well, it points to the ruler Uranus in Gemini. And this talent triangle is together, it means that there are two sextiles going from Uranus, one to Mercury retrograde again, and one to the Neptune and Saturn in Aries again. So it means that this house geometry by the ruler of this lunation is pointing to the two kites that I just mentioned, right? So isn't it interesting that the takeoff point of those two kites of the Mercury retrograde in Leo, giving you the insight into your passion, your inner child, more expression, like, really reassessing where you haven't done that, where you need to do more of that, and just the desire to find more pleasure and joy in your life, how that is a foundation that is really important. And then, like I said, the Saturn and Neptune is a new vision, new dreams, new direction, new you, new goals. And so Uranus is saying in Gemini, this is the house. This is a solid plan, because Uranus is going to disturb that a little bit, right? Uranus is about chaos, the unexpectedness, the surprises, the chaos, the disturbance, the breakdowns and breakouts and breakthroughs. So it can be really, it can be hot and heavy with Uranus, and it really plays on the nervous system. It can really place on the electricity, so the the overwhelm in the body and mind as well, especially in Gemini. So maybe it requires a change of mind. Maybe it requires radical ideas, radical words, radical expression that really frees you and breaks you out. Maybe the mental part is what's holding us back, and Uranus is really tearing it down, tearing the old house down and showing us a glimpse of that new house. I mean, I've never heard of the house forming geometry in astrology, but I do think adding a mystical rectangle to a talent triangle, that it's a very special geometry. Really plays to that uniqueness that this full moon is, the unexpected, the surprising, but really beneficial, even if there is some discomfort, even if, really disturbing things are happening or coming to light. I think the geometry really shows us that we are in the right direction, and that you really have to trust this one and ride it out, and I guess from a Uranian level, really look at the higher perspective. Look at what's going on the frequency, vibrational aspect. Look at what this is saying from a quantum science perspective. And maybe it's forcing people to see the truth and to see what they don't want and what they do want. To sometimes also saying a really loud no, I've had it, it's enough, is a real deal breaker, like Uranus can be. So look at it from higher perspective if it's really disturbing, or if it's like uncomfortable, that things are shifting for your higher expression, for your evolution, but also for the collective. Because, September is around the corner, the first eclipse is 1 month away from this lunation. We are already in a lot of healing energy for the body and mind. So here's a little disruptance of that, is a little shake up to the body and the mind, but it's all for the healing, which we're going to really feel in September. And part of that storyline is the saying goodbye to the old ways, the old system, the old history. And that's has some sadness and the grief and the anxiousness of what is then to come. And so in this lunation, we're dealing with the anxiousness, with the nervousness, with the new. We can see the new, we can feel the new. And at this lunation, it's really about following the inner child, following the passion, holding on to the power that you are, just you, no one and nothing else, because you have to trust that that is the right path, you know. Finding your unique expression and trust that. Technically, in astrology, they don't look at this. They don't generally take in the south node because it's a calculated point. It's not a planet, but it's really, really important. And we're marching towards the eclipse in September, so I think this is pretty relevant. So there's a yod forming from the south node in Virgo, sextiling, which is a good aspect, but it needs some effort, to Jupiter at 13 degrees of the crab. And so these two, Jupiter and the south node in Virgo, the south node is the release of the karma, the release of perfectionism, the release of control, always thinking that you can improve and do better, you know? We have to release a lot of that. And there's a massive cleanup going on physically, with our goals, with our plans. And Jupiter is exalted in the crab, and it's focusing on what we love, what feels good, what is nourishing, a little bit vintage vibes, a lot about family, a lot about, you know, the mother energy for some reason. You as a mom, wanting to be a mom, or with your own mom, or just the mom energy, the womb energy, which is about creation. And that is making a 2 quincunxes to the full moon in Aquarius. And so this is a yod, this is the finger of God, right? So this is a very divine geometry. And the full moon in Aquarius is about breaking free, breaking into who you really are, especially at a Leo degree. It's about you having fun with your expression, with your inner child, to really innovate and trailblaze by being your authentic self and following your authentic needs, your authentic passion. And so even though the relationship is odd because of this yod, as long as we work with that massive cleanup of our body and mind. So I would suggest also, because it's related to the incoming eclipses in September, do your cleanses, do your cleanups. By the way, a full moon is an excellent moment for a cleanup, for a detox, for a cleanse, 5 days before a full moon. So in this case, August 4th, you can start a detox, and is highly beneficial. But doing saunas or massages, self-care, or therapy is excellent, or even cleaning your house. But also letting go of your old ways, letting go of trying to force and control things, whereas we have to really trust the divine path here. And so the cleanup, physically, mentally, internally, is related to feeling at home, probably feeling at home in your body, feeling at home in your life, feeling good and nourished, feeling safe is something you need to work on or embrace. And feeling safe and feeling healthy is related to feeling you at that unique frequency that you are. And it can be really difficult because sometimes you have to defy, go against these societal norms. This is a time to follow what feels good, what feels like you're at home, what you need to do to clean and cleanse to make sure you feel at home. And that's in your body, that's in your physical environment, but that's also emotionally, right? Feeling at home in your situation, in yourself. And, it could be an indication to like mother yourself as you would want to be mothered. So be the best mom to yourself, be kind to yourself, be caring to yourself, because it's part of that unique you. You have to be kind to the unique you that you are. But the quincunx, the oddness is that Aquarius tends to not be emotional, and Jupiter is there, right? And Virgo is very physical. It's the body and it's the earthly life and the practical side. It's very dense. And Aquarius is not about that at all, right? It's air. It's not about the earth, but it's about the cosmic, the alien, the way off planet situation. So the Aquarius finds it difficult to work with Virgo energy and with crab energy. But the yacht is saying that there's magic here, that there is a divine reason for this. And, just be good to yourself in this process and be daring enough, brave enough, and kind enough to yourself to explore what that is to be more of you, more your unique voice. And sometimes you fall, and sometimes you need to stand up again and like be that kind mom to yourself. And sometimes you need to splurge yourself, get the massage, go to the sauna, be kind to your body. If you don't have the discipline to do a cleanse or anything like that, that's also, be kind to yourself. That's okay. Maybe your path is different. Then you pray for your health. Then you sit with your body and you thank your body for all that it does for you. It's that kind of normally uncomfortable for an Aquarius energy, but that's where the magic is at, okay? So happy full moon in Aquarius. It is a wild one. Just follow your passion, follow your inner child, and break free from everything you are not. Take care.